Hello everyone, welcome back. This is lecture 2 in our deep dive on the T.S. Eliot's landmark essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent. In lecture 1, we explored Eliot's definition of tradition and the idea of historical sense, how great writers must understand both the past and the present. Today, we explore the second and third parts of the essay. Eliot's impersonal theory of poetry, the role of poet's mind as a catalyst, his rejection of Romanticism, and critical responses to Eliot's theory. The impersonal theory of poetry. Eliot begins part 2 with a bold claim. He says, poetry is not a turning loose of emotion, but an escape from emotion. It is not the expression of personality, but an escape from personality. Eliot believes that great poetry does not come from expressing personal feelings. Instead, it results from refining, controlling, and combining emotions through the mind of the poet. For example, in romantic poetry, the poet is seen as expressing personal feelings. Eliot does not agree to this idea and argues that the poet should not be visible in the poem. The poem itself should be the focus, not the poet's life. Eliot's famous analogy, the catalyst in a chemical reaction. To explain the theory, Eliot gives us a scientific analogy. If you put oxygen and sulfur dioxide in a jar, they do not react by themselves. But when you add a piece of platinum, the gases combine to form sulfurous acid. The platinum causes the reaction, but it is not changed by it. The platinum is just a catalyst. Something similar happens with poetry if you consider poem as the final product. Just imagine, emotions and experiences are like gases. Poet's mind is like platinum, and poem is like the new compound, like the sulfurous acid. The poet's mind combines these elements, but the poet's personality does not appear in the final work. So, Eliot's point is that the poet enables a powerful combination of feelings, but the poem should not show traces of poet's personal life or personality. The poet's mind is a receptacle. Eliot describes the poet's mind as a jar or a receptacle that stores many different impressions, feelings, and experiences, allows them to combine under the pressure of intense artistic concentration, and produces something new and unique. Eliot says, the more perfect the artist, the more completely separate in him will be the man who suffers and the mind which creates. So the poet might suffer in life, but the poem must be structured, refined, and detached. Personal emotions versus artistic emotions. Eliot distinguishes between personal emotions and artistic emotions. Personal emotions are raw, private, and unstructured. On the other hand, artistic emotions are crafted, arranged, and impersonal. For example, in the poem Ode to a Nightingale, Keats famously writes, "My heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk." See, this is deeply personal and emotive. The poem explores his desire to escape reality through the Nightingale's song, his confrontation with art and a blend of his own suffering like illness, death of his brother, and his own mortality. This intense emotional subjectivity is exactly the kind of thing Eliot considers problematic or at least less admirable. Rejection of Wordsworth's Romanticism. In the book Lyrical Ballads, William Wordsworth said, poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. Eliot does not agree to that. He replies that the model is too subjective and unreliable. Poetry should involve conscious selection, organization, and refinement. In Eliot's view, poetry is not about remembering feelings. It is about combining feelings and images into new forms. The poet should be conscious where it matters most, the structure of the poem. Part 3. The final thoughts and the role of criticism. Eliot concludes by saying that the progress of an artist is a continual self-sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. According to Eliot, to be a great poet, you must let go of your personal ego. You must submit yourself to the tradition and the art itself. This also explains Eliot's theory of literary criticism. He says critics should focus on the poem, but not the poet. The value of a work lies in its structure, language, and impact, not in the biography of the poet. Eliot's ideas spark both admiration and debate. Let's look at some criticism. Here I am presenting 5 key arguments. The first one is impersonality versus identity. Many critics argue that personal experience is central to poetry. For women, queer writers, and the colonized authors, personal suffering is not something to escape, but something that gives power to their writing. Their voice often comes from lived pain and cultural struggle. The second one is postcolonial and diaspora perspective. Writers who come from colonial backgrounds or live in exile often do not feel part of a fixed tradition. Their writing challenges the idea of a stable literary past. Instead, they explore mixed identities, memory, and the cultural displacement. Eliot's model does not reflect this reality. Third one is feminist criticism. Eliot's theory removes the author from the poem. But feminist critics argue that gender, inequality, and social roles strongly affect how women write. Ignoring the author also ignores the conditions that shape their voices. The personal, in their case, is often deeply political and poetic. The fourth one is biographical and historical context. Some critics believe we cannot truly understand a poem without knowing the poet's background. A poet's class, race, location, political views, or mental health often add meaning to their work. Studying poems without this context can make the interpretation shallow. The last one is reader-centered theories. Thinkers like Roland Barthes and Michel Foucault believe meaning is created by the reader, not the writer. Even if the poet hides their identity, the poem still reflects ideas, values, and cultural traces. No poem is ever completely neutral or detached from the author's world. Thank you for watching the second lecture. If this helped you understand Eliot better, give it a thumbs up and share it with your classmates. See you next time.